You're live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Israel offers ceasefire if half of hostages held are released, even as Hamas rejects additional demand to disarm. UN says humanitarian crisis in Gaza at its worst. US sets stage for imposing tariffs on pharmaceuticals and semiconductors as it announces national security investigations into their imports. Sudan faces the world's worst humanitarian crisis as country marks second anniversary of conflict. UK hosts global conference with aim of resolving it. Mark Zuckerberg testifies at a landmark US antitrust trial as Meta stands accused of unfair practices to acquire Instagram and WhatsApp. Case could see forced divestment of both apps. And in sports, world number 1 Magnus Carlsen beats Hikaru Nakamura to clinch the Paris Freestyle Chess Grand Slam. And on to the details. Gaza peace talks mediator Egypt said it received an Israeli proposal for a temporary ceasefire in Gaza that would pave the way for negotiations towards a permanent cessation of hostilities. In its proposal, Israel offered a ceasefire of at least 45 days in exchange for the release of half of the remaining hostages held in the Palestinian territory and the entry of aid. The proposal also includes the disarmament of Hamas and all Palestinian armed factions in the Gaza Strip as a condition for a permanent end to the conflict. Mediators, Egypt and Qatar, have presented the new Israeli proposal for a Gaza ceasefire to Hamas. Hamas leaders, meanwhile, said they were reviewing the ceasefire proposal and would respond as soon as the necessary internal consultations are completed. The group informed the mediators that it is willing to agree to any proposal that includes a permanent ceasefire, a full Israeli withdrawal from the Gaza Strip and the entry of aid. Hamas, however, had rejected any clauses that would see it forced to disarm. Hamas and the resistance faction's position is that the resistance's weapons are a red line and non-negotiable. Hamas took 251 hostages during the October 7, 2023 attacks that set off the conflict. Some 58 are still held in Gaza, including 34 the Israeli military says are dead. And the United Nations on Monday said Gaza was facing its most severe humanitarian crisis since the conflict began, with no aid entering the territory for weeks now. Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs said no supplies had reached Gaza for a month and a half since Israel ended a 2-month ceasefire and began blocking their delivery. And the US State Department has approved the potential sale of A-10 powerback engines and related equipment to Israel for an estimated cost of $180 million. The principal contractor for the sale will be Rolls-Royce Solution America. The Defense Security Cooperation Agency in a statement said the United States is committed to the security of Israel and it is vital to U.S. national interest to assist Israel to develop and maintain a strong and ready self-defense capability. And Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi met Qatari Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani in Qatar's capital. Qatar and Egypt agreed to work towards a package of $7.5 billion in direct Qatari investments. The two also discussed the situation in West Asia, stressing on the importance of working to cease the fighting in the enclave. Egypt is pushing ahead with efforts to secure funding from Gulf neighbors and foreign partners as it seeks to tackle heavy foreign debts and a gaping budget deficit. Last year, Egypt signed a deal with Abu Dhabi-based sovereign fund ADQ to develop a city at Ras Al Hikma on Egypt's north coast. And U.S. President Donald Trump on Monday once again blamed Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for Russia's invasion and accused him of responsibility for millions of deaths. During a meeting in the Oval Office with the President of El Salvador, Trump placed blame of the Russia-Ukraine conflict not just on Russian President Vladimir Putin, but also on former U.S. President Joe Biden and Zelensky himself. He also claimed the Ukrainian leader is constantly seeking to purchase the U.S. missiles, adding that he expects some good proposals on ending the conflict soon. Trump, however, insisted a deal to end the Ukraine conflict was possible.
War that should have never been allowed to start, and Biden could have stopped it, and Zelensky could have stopped it, and Putin should have never started it. Everybody's to blame. Looking to purchase missiles, you know, he's against. Listen, when you start a war, you got to know that you can win the war, right? You don't start a war against somebody that's 20 times your size, and then hope that people give you some missiles. All I can do is try and stop it. That's all I want to do. I want to stop the killing, and I think we're doing well in that regard. I think you'll have some very good proposals very soon.
And the United States and Ukraine reportedly held constructive talks last week in Washington over a proposed minerals deal aimed at giving the U.S. a share in Ukraine's lucrative rare minerals sector. Well, a Ukrainian delegation traveled to Washington with the goal of pushing negotiations forward. Ukraine's Justice Minister Olga Stefanishyna called the consultations a positive sign in a TV appearance on Monday. The deal is reportedly being pushed by Donald Trump, who wants it to serve as compensation for the military and financial aid provided to Ukraine under former President Joe Biden. Well, a series of explosions rocked the Russian city of Kursk near the Ukraine border early on Tuesday, reportedly damaging residential buildings. According to the local media, the blast sparked a fire in the multi-story residential building. The cause of the explosions remain unclear. And the United Nations and rights groups have called for an end to the violence in Sudan as the second anniversary of the conflict looms, and the paramilitary rapid support forces have intensified attacks in Darfur, killing dozens of people in recent days. The United Nations said that more than 300 civilians have been killed in fighting on Friday and Saturday around Zamzam and Abu Shok displacement camps in the town of El Fasher in North Darfur. This includes 10 humanitarian personnel from Relief International who were killed while operating one of the last functioning health centers in Zamzam camp. Meanwhile, Britain said on Tuesday it would provide $158 million more in aid to people in Sudan as it hosted a conference marking the 2-year anniversary of the conflict. Well, Britain is co-hosting the London conference with the African Union, the European Union, France and Germany. Egypt, Kenya and the United Arab Emirates are among the other attendees. Britain said Tuesday's conference in London would be a chance to improve the coherence of the international response to the crisis, although Sudan criticized the fact its government was not invited for the talks. And President Nayib Bukele of El Salvador said that he would not order the return to the United States of a Maryland man who was mistakenly deported. President Bukele made the comments during a meeting on Monday at the White House with U.S. President Donald Trump, with whom he shares a strong relationship. Despite a court order instructing the U.S. to facilitate the man's return, senior White House officials said it was up to El Salvador to decide whether to do so. The Trump administration has been fighting for days against a judge's order to return a wrongfully deported Maryland man to the United States.
How can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, I mean, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
But you can release him.
And foremost, he was illegally in our country. He had been illegally in our country. That's up to El Salvador. If they want to return him, that's not up to us. The Supreme Court ruled, President, that if, as El Salvador wants to return him, this is international matters, foreign affairs. If they wanted to return him, we would facilitate it, meaning provide a plane.
Well, U.S. President Donald Trump said he wants to deport some violent criminals who are U.S. citizens to El Salvador, where they would be incarcerated under an agreement with that country's government. The remarks were one of the clearest signals yet that the U.S. president is serious about deporting naturalized and U.S.-born citizens, a proposal that has alarmed civil rights advocates and it's viewed by many legal scholars as unconstitutional. Trump said he would only go through the idea if the administration determined it was legal. And the United States signaled a fresh escalation in its trade war on Monday, this time hinting at tariffs on semiconductors and imported pharmaceuticals, deepening global market jitters. President Donald Trump said he expects to impose tariffs on foreign-made pharmaceuticals in the not-too-distant future, adding to the growing list of goods targeted in Washington's trade offensive. The move is likely to impact major global suppliers and further fuel economic uncertainty.
Make our own drugs, our own pharmaceuticals. We don't make our own drugs anymore. The drug companies are in Ireland and they're in lots of other places, China. And all I have to do is impose a tariff. The more, the faster they move in. The higher the tariff, it's very simple. It's inversely proportional. The higher the tariff, the faster they come.
Well, the U.S. Department of Education has frozen more than $2 billion in federal funding for Harvard University just hours after the school rejected President Donald Trump's demands that it make policy changes on diversity. The move marks a new level of contentiousness between President Donald Trump's administration and American universities it accuses of being captured by the extreme left. Trump's administration has frozen hundreds of millions of dollars in federal funding for numerous universities, pressing the institutions to make policy and other changes and citing what it says is a failure to fight anti-Semitism on campus. However, Harvard on Monday rejected Trump administration demands that to receive federal funding, it ends diversity efforts and take other steps that the university said would stifle intellectual freedoms of faculty and students. To ease any funding crunch created by any cutoff in federal funding, Harvard is working to borrow $750 million from Wall Street. And U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent expressed full support of Donald Trump's government for the economic reforms underway in Argentina in a meeting with its president, Javier Milei. At the Government House in Buenos Aires, Bessent also praised Milei for his government's decision to reduce barriers to reciprocal trade with the United States. Milei said that the Argentine government understands the U.S. reciprocal tariff proposal and is ready to sign a trade agreement. At the meeting, Bessent congratulated the government for the negotiations with the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank and the Inter-American Development Bank. On April 11th, Argentina sealed an extended facility program with the IMF for $20 billion in addition to loans with the World Bank and the IDB and announced the relaxation of exchange market controls. And Hungary's parliament has approved constitutional changes on Monday which will limit the rights of LGBTQ+ people and dual nationals. The constitutional amendments was easily passed due to the ruling party Fidesz's two-thirds majority and with the support of far-right lawmakers. The amendment passed with 140 members voting for and 21 against it, emphasized the protection of children's physical and moral development over all other rights. The changes also enshrine in the constitution that Hungary recognizes only two sexes, male and female, in line with Prime Minister Viktor Orban's Christian conservative agenda. Monday's amendment underpins legislation passed on March 18 that bans the annual Pride March, effectively restricting freedom of assembly and triggering protest against the changes fast-tracked by Orban's Fidesz's party. And China's President Xi Jinping called for stronger ties with Vietnam on trade and supply chains amid disruptions caused by U.S. tariffs. Xi Jinping attended the signing of Hanoi of dozens of cooperation agreements between the two communist-run nations. In Hanoi, Xi met with Communist Party General Secretary Tom Lam, Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh. The two countries signed dozens of cooperation agreements, including deals on enhancing supply chains and cooperation over railways. The visit, planned for weeks and part of a wider trip in Southeast Asia, comes as Beijing faces 145% US duties, while Vietnam is negotiating a reduction of threatened US tariffs of 46% that would otherwise apply in July after a global moratorium expires. And still to come in this edition of DD India Live. India and Uzbekistan kicks off the 6th edition of joint military exercise Daslik in Pune to foster bilateral defence ties. Olympic torch unveiled in Osaka for Milano Cortina 2026 Winter Games. And elephants at Santiago Zoo sense earthquake. What they do next is incredible.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Lipakshi Kuran. Moving on, India and South Africa honored their shared history at the War Museum in Bloemfontein with a tribute to Mahatma Gandhi and the launch of a new documentary. Consulate General of India, Durban, with India's High Commissioner Sri Prabhat Kumar and Free State MEC Moses Ketso Makume unveiled a Gandhi bust celebrating his legacy of peace and the role of Indian communities in the South African War of 1899 to 1902. The museum, dedicated to inclusive remembrance of the conflict, hosted a commemorative event which marked a meaningful step in deepening historical understanding and cultural appreciation between the two nations. DD India correspondent Nazneen Ismail reports for more.
In a powerful celebration of shared heritage and enduring friendship, High Commissioner of India to South Africa, Sri Prabhat Kumar, joint MEC of Finance, Economic Development and Tourism in the Free State, Mr. Moses Ketso Makume, at the War Museum in Bloemfontein, where they unveiled a Gandhi bust and launched a poignant new book and documentary titled Caught in the Crossfire. The event paid tribute to Gandhi's legacy of peace and resilience and spotlighted the contributions of Indian communities during the South African Anglo-Boer War of 1899 to 1902. The War Museum, which centers on the South African Anglo-Boer War, has long strived to honor the diverse groups affected by the conflict, including white, African, colored, and Indian communities. Since 2009, it has actively worked to acknowledge the contributions and sufferings of all racial groups during the war. As part of this ongoing effort, a commemorative event was held to reflect on the shared history and complex legacies of the war.
India's links with the struggle of freedom and justice in South Africa date back to the period during which Mahatma Gandhi started his Satyagraha movement in South Africa over a century ago. As it is said, while India gave Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi to South Africa gave Mahatma in return to India. As a leader of the Indian Ambulance Corps, Gandhiji, who was also a devout humanitarian, involved himself in the war to save precious life.
The evening also featured a captivating musical performance by Shadow and Light, who presented a selection of their original compositions.
The Indian story was never told in the world, and it's not just and fair. And you tell the story without sugarcoating. For nation building, for social cohesion, unique nation healing, and you must open the wounds of the past to get nation healing.
This is an important day for us because today we have unveiled the statue the bust of Mahatma Gandhi in the War Museum in Bloemfontein. It is important because Mahatma Gandhi participated as a ambulance corps member, as a stretcher bearer in the Boer War, and showed the humanitarian angle of Mahatma Gandhi. And it is very well captured and also in the book that we unveiled today.
So in honoring the past, India and South Africa walk hand in hand toward a future enriched with shared history. I'm Nazneen for DD India, Bloemfontein, South Africa.
And aimed at strengthening bilateral military cooperation, the 6th edition of the joint military exercise Daslik between India and Uzbekistan to commence in Pune from 15th to 28th of April 2025. This exercise will bring together contingents from the Indian Army and the Uzbekistan Army to enhance collaboration and strengthen military ties. Exercise Daslik aims to enhance joint training and facilitate the exchange of best practices in counter-terrorism operations within the sub-conventional domain. This initiative seeks to enhance military cooperation and interoperability between the two armies. And moving on in business news, Meta Platform CEO Mark Zuckerberg took the stand on Monday at a high-stakes trial in Washington over US antitrust enforcers' claims that the company spent billions of dollars to acquire Instagram and WhatsApp to fend off Facebook competitors. The looming antitrust trial will be the first big test of President Donald Trump's Federal Trade Commission's ability to challenge the big tech. Zuckerberg responded to questions while seeking to combat allegations Meta brought the companies a decade ago to eliminate competition among social media platforms where users connect with friends and family. The FTC has pointed to emails in which Zuckerberg proposed acquiring photo-sharing app Instagram as a way to neutralize a potential Facebook competitor and expressed worry that encrypted messaging service WhatsApp could grow into a social network. The trial could stretch into July. If the FTC wins, it would have to separately prove that measures such as forcing Meta or to sell Instagram or WhatsApp would restore competition. And on to some sports news now. World number 1 Magnus Carlsen clinched the Paris Freestyle Chess Grand Slam on Monday night after seeing off Hikaru Nakamura. Carlsen defeated his American opponent Nakamura 1.5 to 0.5 in the final after winning the first game and drawing the second to claim the title without needing a tie break. Along with the title, Carlsen took home the $200,000 first prize, reinforcing his supremacy in this new hybrid format that combines creativity with classical rigor. Meanwhile, Fabiano Caruana edged out Vincent Kima in the third place playoff, also winning the match by 1.5 to 0.5. With the win, Caruana has booked a spot in the Las Vegas Grand Slam this July. And the torches that will carry the Olympic flame for the 2026 Winter Games and Paralympics were unveiled in a dual event in Milan and Osaka on Monday. Made from recycled aluminium, the torches have been styled in two different versions, blue-colored for the Olympics and the bronze for the Paralympics. Form of cross-country skiers Stefania and Paralympic fencers star BBVO unveiled the torches in a theatre in Milan. Milan and the town of Cortina d'Ampezzo are the main hosts of the Games, which will run from 6th to 22nd of February in 2026. And in cricket, MS Dhoni smashed 26 off just 11 balls, taking Chennai Super Kings to a dramatic last-over victory over Lucknow Super Giants in the IPL 2025 clash. The legendary CSK captain led from the front as his team ended a 5-match losing streak in this season's IPL. Walking in to bat with 56 needed off 30 balls, Dhoni's knock together with Shivam Dubey's 43 ensured that Chennai clinched their second win of IPL 2025. Batting first, Lucknow captain Rishabh Pant top scored with 63, helping his side reach a total of 168 for 7 in 20 overs. Meanwhile, in their run chase, IPL debutant Shaikh Rashid gave Chennai a flying start, but they lost their way in the middle overs. and the elephants at the Santiago Zoo Safari Park instinctively formed a protective circle around their young during a 5.2 magnitude earthquake that struck Santiago County on Monday, showcasing a natural behavior known as an alert circle, intended to shield the most vulnerable members of the herd from perceived threats. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India Live. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world with the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. Well, we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Dipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.